places.
Welcome, everyone, to our Q3 update. This is the fastest that we've ever turned around a quarterly update.
I'm proud of us.
We're like 3 days into Q4 of 2024. Usually it takes us a few weeks to compile all of the financial data, get all the pictures, all of those sorts of things. But we're having a baby in a few weeks, so we have a little fire under our bottoms to
Our,
get
our Q4 update might just be like a baby picture or something like that.
Yeah. So welcome. This is our Q3 update for 2024. We have so many good things to
Mhm.
share. Let's just jump in. I appreciate that you guys are joining us in the middle of the afternoon, maybe over a lunch break or just kind of listening in as you're taking care of other things at work or joining us in the replay. And excited to share our updates. Q2 was the strongest quarter in our company's history. Q3 continued that trend. We're excited about what we have in motion for Q4. And so this is going to be an update full of some exciting stuff.
We have twice the updates and half the slides, so we'll see how this shakes out. I think it's going to go well.
Awesome. Here we go. Share our screen. All right, well, here we go. Welcome, everyone. Per usual, if you have questions, pop those into chat. We try to answer them as we go along, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. But let's jump in. We have our usual disclaimer that we start with, that we're sharing both updates that have happened, right? Things that have occurred. They're accurate statements of activity in the past. We will also be sharing some forward-looking statements that's based on our best projections based on past behavior of the portfolio. Forward-looking projections are never guaranteed. They're our best guess of what might happen in the future. Investing does have risk. Whenever you're making an investment decision, be sure to talk to your personal advisors, review the PPM, the operating agreement, all of those documents as you're making an informed decision for investing.
Well done. And a little bit about us. If you've never been to one of our webinars before, we're Nick and Elaine Stockenberg. We have the privilege of being married together, having 4 going on 5 babies together any day now. We've got 375 million in assets under management. It's about 1,200 units here in Rochester, Minnesota, of multifamily and single-family homes, and 300 in Tacoma, Washington. We've raised over $70 million of capital. All that's going up every day right this second because we have Fund 4 open right now. I've got a real estate sales team with over $180 million in lifetime sales, about a dozen real estate agents that are on our team. I'm a licensed real estate agent with Keller Williams, and we do a little bit of ground up construction. Just wrapped up a 5-year Class A townhome subdivision development and just broke ground on Stonehaven Apartments, which is also in Fund 4. Very excited about that project. Elaine just took some pictures at sunrise of all the construction workers pouring concrete and stuff at Stonehaven. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning at Stonehaven. So
Yeah, it really was. And what isn't captured in that photo is, the ambiance and, there was just all that sort of like gentle hum of all the construction vehicles and, the movement of the workers. It was just a really beautiful morning. Seeing that come together, we've been really blessed with great weather this summer, particularly over the latter part of the summer here in Minnesota. And that's wonderful for construction. And so it's been a lot of fun watching that project unfold.
we've got a few questions here at the top of the show here. So at a time when there's a lot of capital loss in the industries, capital calls, distributions are on pause. Why are we doing so well? Just a mountain of fixed rate debt, and if you tuned into our educational content from a couple of years ago, we were kind of on a soapbox about challenges coming in the industry, and fortunately, we were able to avoid a lot of those challenges. So 2024 has been kind of the best year in the history of the company, and Q2 and now Q3 probably the strongest quarters in the history of the company. That's the most common question we get these days: is why are things going so well at Black Swan? I don't think you had to be a genius to see the current set of market conditions coming, and we were prepared, and now we're acquiring some really incredible deals that are in Fund 4. So you can log into your InvestNets portal to verify your account information, blackswan.investnext.com. If you want to make sure you're receiving distributions on time, we're expecting to start distributions for Fund 2, routine distributions. We've already done some distributions for Fund 2, and our distributions for Fund 1 are continuing on schedule. We expect Fund 3 and Fund 4 distributions to start in 2025. So Fund 4 will probably be our fund that will start issuing distributions faster than any other fund, just the capital efficiency and the deals that we've gotten into Fund 4. So make sure if you're in one of our funds, you log into the InvestNext portal and you've got your bank account information set up correctly so you can receive distributions, because we are issuing distributions across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Our PPM and our operating agreement call for quarterly distributions, but we know people really like monthly distributions. So that's what we set up for Fund One this year. And then the plan for 2025, which just like sounds crazy to say.
Right
like,
around the corner.
how are we a quarter of a century into the century? Like that just seems crazy. But for 2025, we'll do monthly distributions for Fund One and Fund Two as well. People just seem to like that monthly deposit into the bank account a little more than quarterly distributions, and we're happy to take care of that from an administrative perspective. So that is exciting. Here is our just kind of summary of what we're going to go over today. Q3 of 2024 has been our strongest quarter ever. This top bullet point, the appraisal for residents at Discovery Square, which is the large asset that's co-owned by Fund One and Fund Two. The appraisal came back and we literally just got the number in hand, like 40 minutes ago at this point. We're not able to share it yet. Our banker asked that we not share it publicly. But suffice it to say, I will be spending most of our presentation making sure I don't say that number because I am so excited about it.
It's a good number.
So if you guys see like weird faces and stuff from me today, that's why, is that I'm like summoning every ounce of self-control I've ever had in my life. We'll be sharing that number with all of you as soon as we get authorization from the bank to do so. So 2024 has really been the story of RDS. We acquired it in April of 2023. It had existing debt that was sub 2.5%. We, of course, assumed that debt so that we could enjoy that interest rate for as long as possible. We did an exhaustive adaptive reuse of pretty much the entire ground floor, which was blank commercial space, empty white box commercial space. Got an exception from the city to convert the majority of it to residential units, operating those units as short-term rentals so that we could drive up the NOI as quickly as possible, as high as possible. And then we have to have our new financing in place by the end of this month. So we are closing on that loan on October 30th. Nick is like determined to get every day of that 2% interest rate. Like the banker's like, why don't we close on October 20th or 21st? And he's like, well, in addition to Elaine having a baby at, in the middle of the month, like, let's be honest, I want every day of my 2% interest rate I can get. So we'll be closing on that at the end of the month. And you guys are going to be really pleased with the appraisal. It is exciting. Our second update is an appraisal number that we can share because we've known this information for about a week or so. A very large asset in Fund Two is Tanara Villa. That's in Tacoma, Washington. We're in the process of doing an exhaustive renovation of that campus, all of the units, all of the common areas, a huge upgrade of the exterior, like the lawn, the outside living areas. And we're working through that in multiple phases of construction. So we just recently had that appraised, and we are all in at Tanara between our purchase price and then what we've already put into the construction at about $27 million. And it appraised at $30.4 million. So about $3 million of equity has been created in that project in just about 2 years, in about 2 years and 2 months.
During a time when the market has not been, at our back, the wind has not been at our back. So and we're mid project, like it's still a messy middle. So we were blown away at how favorable that appraisal came in. That was just an appraisal we were getting, to work on our next tranche of financing. We did not necessarily expect there to be a huge amount of equity that has been generated, since that project is still very much in flight. There's 20 guys swinging a hammer on it today. You don't usually expect a favorable appraisal on a properties in that sort of messy middle renovation. So really good news there.
Yeah. And the RDS appraisal is even better than that. And then I really seriously have to like just shut up about RDS and practice my self-control.
We'll wait till next week or whenever we get authorization.
Yeah. So 2 very exciting announcements to share right at the top of our time here together. Next up is Dakota Townhomes. That's also owned by Fund Two, a 100-unit townhome community. We did an exhaustive renovation there, extreme management improvements. When we acquired that, about 50% of the rent roll was in some type of arrears. We've had a massive turnaround project there in about 2 years. We acquired that in either October or November of 2022. And we were actively working on our cash out refi there. So the appraisal is scheduled for October 18th. Takes about couple of weeks to get that back, and then authorization from the bank and those sorts of things. So the actual cash out refi, is likely several months away, but that appraisal is the big kind of first boulder that needs to be moved.
We've got all kinds of rent growth across the portfolio. We talked a lot about our organic rent growth being 8.5% or something like that across the portfolio in Q2. That momentum continued forward in Q3. We've got 2 licensed general contractors on staff. 2 of our staff members got their GC license, which is super helpful. There's less than 2% vacancy across our entire Rochester portfolio right now, so we're super excited about that. We got 5 more units at the Riverview. We won Best of the Best property management company, which is kind of a big deal here in Rochester. And finally, didn't we buy something? I can't remember.
We
Bought Georgetown Townhomes. That's a $20 million, 16-acre, 132 unit townhome community. Incredible purchase. We walked in with an appraisal in hand at $22.86 million. We only paid $20.2 million for it. So we walked in with $2.6 million of day one equity on that particular purchase. Probably one of the best purchases we've ever made. And we've got Boulder Ridge under contract, which we're also walking in with millions of dollars of day one equity. So both those deals in Fund 3 and Fund 4. So there's a few balls in the air right now, a few things going on, and just so many amazing things happening across the portfolio right now.
Absolutely. So this is another kind of summary slide breaking it down into fund specifics. And really the story here is the story of a maturing portfolio. So Nick and I have been doing real estate investing since 2011 with our own capital. We built our own personal portfolio, the exact same business plan that's in our private equity funds. As we decided to scale, we looked at sort of traditional private equity and said, not only is it not for us, like it didn't feel authentic because it wasn't the business plan that we used to develop our own family's wealth, which was buy something, renovate it, improve the management, increase the value, do a cash out refi, and then hold it indefinitely. And so we brought that model first into joint ventures and then into our private equity funds. And what you're seeing over our quarterly updates is the story of a maturing portfolio, right? You can think of an apartment acquisition or a single family home acquisition as like a startup business, right? In the beginning, they're incredibly capital intensive. They're incredibly time intensive, right? A lot of people that study business talk about how businesses follow like a human lifespan, right? They're infants. And at first they just take, and they don't give. And then they start to become, children and then adolescents and then young adults. And our portfolio is maturing. And so that's what you're seeing in our updates in Q2, Q3, and then with what we have to come in Q4. So in Fund 1, we've added some more short-term rental units at the Nicholas Apartments. Nicholas is physically in between the 2 Mayo campuses. There's essentially like an inpatient Mayo campus and an outpatient Mayo campus. And Nicholas is a very large apartment building that's physically right in the middle there. So it makes a lot of sense for these short-term rental units. And then we're at about 15% total return of capital to date and continuing with our monthly distributions through 2025. In Fund 2, we just shared how we're working on our refi for Dakota Townhomes. We shared about the appraisal for RDS. Not going to share the number yet, but very excited about that. And then we are acquiring more units at Riverview, which is the building that was condominiumized over the years. And so we're working on acquiring all of those units so that that can be converted into like a traditional apartment building, which will drastically increase the value of that asset overall. Fund 3 and 4, we've closed on Georgetown. That was about 6 weeks ago. We closed in the middle of August. We've already started on our renovations and our management plan there. And then we're under contract on Boulder Ridge. We're closing on that toward the end of the year. And very excited to share that we are officially approved for our HUD loan assumption, which is about 1 million pieces of paper. Just lots of questions, lots of double checking everything, sending in documentation.
They got us a note today that they amended our org chart to insert a comma.
There you go.
It was like Nick, comma, and Dr. Elaine Stoggeberg or something like that. That's the level of detail HUD goes over these documents with. It was a very impressive use of resources for everyone on that email chain.
Nick manages those emails because I would lose my mind if I had to. So I appreciate you taking care of those things and then sharing them with me in a humorous fashion.
It was a great morning.
So we're excited about that. That allows us to assume that debt at 4.47% fixed. And then Fund 4, which is actively open for investment right now. Our big update there is our steady construction project on Stonehaven Apartments. So as we go through the presentation, we'll have more details about the things that we've just covered in these 2 slides here.
And we won Best of the Best. It's kind of a big deal here in Rochester. If you win, Best of the Best roofer or something, you might put that on all of your trucks. You put it in the, your display glass in front of your retail store or something like that. It is highly coveted and very competitive. We make daily solicitations for reviews from our tenants and the public. So we won Best Property Management Company, and RDS won Best Apartment Building in the Best of the Best competition. So we'll be putting Best of the Best stickers on the store glass and stuff at RDS, and it's a big deal in our area. So we're unbelievably proud to be chosen by our clients, our community, as the best in class at what we do.
Yeah, this is our 2nd year to earn this honor for our property management company, Black Swan Living. Our first year to earn it on one of our apartment buildings. We were a finalist last year, but we officially won this year, so that was exciting. And then we have a couple of other Best of the Best winners to share. So the next one is our brokerage. So we are part of the Keller Williams Premier Realty brokerage here in Rochester. Very excited to be aligned with that brand and that culture. As many of you know, we're huge fans of Gary Keller and his mindset as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a servant leader. And so excited that KW earned the best real estate brokerage. That was its first year for Best of the Best. And then a really wonderful agent on our team, Melissa Adams-Goyle. She leads our retail sales team, came to us with a lot of property management experience, a lot of real estate sales experience as an emerging leader in our organization. She's been with us about 18 months, maybe close to 2 years. She won Best Real Estate Agent in the entire community. As you can imagine, like there's not that many property management companies or that many real estate brokerages, but there are a lot of real estate agents. So for Melissa to win that distinction is just, really incredible. Just couldn't be more proud of her, excited for her, and just love having the energy and the leadership that she brings to our team. And it's, clearly felt in the community as well.
A quarter of victory across the board.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about rent growth. It's fun to be nominated Best of the Best. It's something we very much celebrate and brag about to our community. But let's talk about how this impacts the numbers. So we've just got a few charts we can share with you here that are these are kind of like bike drop type charts here. So this is rent growth since acquisition. We have a 35% rent growth at the Nicholas and Oliver in Fund 1. In Fund 2, we've got 40% rent growth at City Hall. 75% rent growth at Hamptons, 35% rent growth at Douglas Trail, Colby 40%. We've only had Colby for like
a little over a year,
16 months or something like that. That's completely crazy. So Riverview and RDS both have smaller rent growth amounts. So when we bought RDS, there were a bunch of short-term rentals. Vacancy was very high.
When we bought Riverview.
I'm sorry, Riverview. There we go. So Riverview, that's a very misleading number, but we want to make sure we're disclosing those numbers using the same criteria and stuff like that. That's not actually a very accurate number there. And then RDS, that's an incredible climb in such a short period of time. That does not include our furnished rentals. So we could obviously like juice that number quite a bit if we did our furnished rentals. And we've kind of cherry picked some of our nicest units for our furnished rentals. So that's sort of diluted that number just a little bit. Still incredible rent growth in such a small period of time for such a huge asset. And then the Tacoma story, it's off the chart. So note that the scale is a little bit different on those charts. 80% for the first two, 100% for the third one. Garden Court West, we've grown rent 80% there. That's one of our joint venture deals there. I think that was actually a typo in the presentation, but that's okay. That's a little bit more mature deal. It's done incredibly well, and our other deals that are in Fund 2 are on that same trajectory. Garfield's up 60% since we purchased that asset in December 2022. That's like 20 months or something like that, and we've increased rents 60% there. Tanara, almost 50% rent growth. So again, that's a 130 unit asset. That is a big ship to turn quickly, and increasing rents 45% in such a short period of time. Absolutely incredible. Kensington Lorison, we've had that since June of 2023. I think that's a typo as well. So a little bit less runway on that asset. Almost 25% rent growth there. So staggering rent growth pretty much across the portfolio. So these are all of the assets that are in Fund 1, Fund 2. Could not be more proud of our financial outcomes. revenue is the sure sign of value creation, and we're so proud of the value that we've created all these assets.
Absolutely. I love to see it, um, just to see it displayed, right?
This is an insane chart.
Yeah.
Just at, most groups, they might bump rents, 10%, 20%, at very most. And we're at, 40, 75, 80%. It's just, it's staggering.
Next up is a win for vertical integration. So a huge shout out to Stephanie, our director of operations, and Tyler, our director of construction and maintenance. Both of them have earned their general contractor license here in Minnesota. This is a huge deal, right? It allows us to another part of that vertical integration chain. It increases our quality and control. Most importantly, it reduces our costs, right? So something like, say, let's take like repairing a deck. Our maintenance team knows how to do it, but in order to pull the permits and everything that must happen in order to be in compliance with the city, then requires that we hire like a professional deck company. And what might be, say, a $3,000 job is all of a sudden a $12,000 job. And we historically have not been able to pull those permits ourselves. And so we now can do that. And so that allows us to do those types of projects in-house and pay for labor and materials, much more closer to cost. All of the vertical integration is about, removing the profit centers of third-party vendors so that we can keep that profit at the asset level. And having not one, but two general contractors on our team allows us to pull permits, and it's just going to be so exciting. So huge shout out to Stephanie and Tyler. Required that they take a course, do all sorts of studying, memorize all sorts of building code.
Huge test.
Take a huge, like, I think it was like a 6-hour test or, I'm sure many of us have been through those tests where I remember when I finished step 1, I just like laid in my car and wasn't even safe to drive because the test itself was so long. That's kind of the scale of the general contractor test, and they both passed, and just super excited about what
on their first try. Many people, it takes a lot of tries to pass their GC license exam.
So very excited about what this represents for them and their continued career trajectory and their leadership, and then what this represents for our portfolio and the improvement in quality and control and the reduction of cost that will come from this.
And just a little bit about our blue ocean market here. You can check the replay email for a full DMC update here. So lots of great information, kind of coming in every day. There's, buildings being demolished. There's lines on the ground and people doing things underground every day. There's just these enormous buildings that are coming, a $5 billion expansion to Mayo Clinic's campus. So think 2 Amazon HQ2s, but on a Midwest budget. So like 4 or 6 Amazon HQ2s happening in a town of 150,000. So just massive uplift to our community. You can see on the map there stars for all the properties that we own, many of which are owned in one fund or another. It'll be just a massive uplift impact on the whole portfolio.
Yeah. Destination Medical Center just released a really nice PDF. And we thought about kind of, snipping some of that PDF and sharing it inside of this quarterly report. But we really think that to really understand Rochester, you really have to understand Destination Medical Center. It is one of the I think it's the largest public-private partnership in the state of Minnesota, and one of the largest per capita spend on new development infrastructure anywhere in the country. Mm-hmm. It's kind of an example of how to organically grow and build a community for the entire world. It's studied by like the World Economic Forum and those sorts of things. So we wanted you to just be able to see that PDF yourself. So in the replay email, in addition to having our brochure that summarizes everything that we go over verbally here, we'll have that PDF. I encourage you to take just like 2 or 3 minutes to look at it. You will be impressed, and it will really help you to understand Rochester at a much deeper level.
Yeah, we can talk about UMR a little bit as well. It's the University of Minnesota Rochester. There's only 2 de novo university campuses in the United States this millennium. One of them is right here in Rochester, Minnesota. That gives you some idea of the level of growth that this community is experiencing. Huge expansion plans there. So in that chart or map on the right, you can see the new campus basically that they're envisioning. So they're working on design plans, working on their capital campaign. Unclear exactly when that's going to go live, so to speak, but probably sometime in the next 2 years, if I was to take a guess. And you can see residents at Discovery Square, RDS is right there on UMR's map because we lease one floor of that building to UMR. It's a very powerful partnership, and there's going to be just an insane uplift effect on that area. Right now, it's all just fallow land in urban core, and it's going to completely transform that area when that new campus comes in.
Yeah, super exciting. It's so fun to see. We are really big believers in, of course, doing everything we can for our own portfolio, right? Having many plans for value add, for management improvements, but then also strategically investing where the tide is rising. That's why we're in Rochester. That's why we're in Tacoma. And so, like on this picture here, for example, the city has just spent, I think it was like $20 million. Don't super quote me on that, but I'm fairly certain it was $20 million on Soldiers Field Park, which is a community park with like playgrounds, a running track, those sorts of things. They've added all sorts of new stuff, pickleball, a beautiful aquatic center with beautiful new slides, redid several playgrounds for children. It was a wonderful place to begin with, kind of the heart of Rochester. We live about 25 minutes away from it, and we would still go to Soldiers Field, many, many, many times per summer with our children. And now it's even nicer. It kind of competes with some of the really beautiful parks in, say, like Minneapolis, St. Paul, that we would often drive like an hour and a half to spend a day at those parks with our children. And now we have something of that caliber right here in Rochester, just a block away from RDS. And then to also have the development dollars and the investment dollars that University of Minnesota Rochester is putting in, right next to our building is just wonderful, so that we can continue our value add plan and control what we can control for our asset. But then the tide is just helping to rise the boat as well.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about our short-term rentals.
We love short-term rentals.
We do, yeah. So those of you that are new to us, historically, we've operated a portfolio entirely of long-term leases, say 9 months plus. About a year ago, we made the decision to bring short-term rentals into our portfolio. So we didn't necessarily acquire anything new for short-term rentals. We just converted existing units in our apartment buildings as a way to drive up income and to drive down vacancy. We have scaled to 53 units online today. We started this in September of last year, so it's just a little over a year old. And talk about like how a business kind of follows the lifespan of a human. Like, it has been as hard as having a newborn baby.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, up at night with customer service calls or Airbnb booking inquiries, all of the things.
So many 2 a.m. check-ins. People love to check in for they have like a 6 a.m. report time for surgery the next day. And for some reason they think, I'm going to drive to that appointment. I'm going to leave on Sunday from like Idaho, and it's going to go great. And they're checking in at 2 a.m. They're bleary-eyed and they can't figure out the keypad code or something like that. So many interesting discoveries in this line of business.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we have 53 units. The big push for this year was building out those units at Residence Discovery Square, furnishing them. We've had some pictures in some of our historic quarterly updates where we had almost our entire team. I mean, like our accountants, our property managers, our compliance folks, like everyone. We said, everyone can put together a coffee pot. Everyone can wash dishes. Everyone can put sheets on a bed. It was a ton of fun. We outfitted about 20 units in just a few days. It was a great team building experience. And so we had all of those units online in time for our refinance, which was really kind of the biggest push that we've had this year. We've earned our Airbnb super host status twice. So really excited about that. When a business is growing, right, just think about, kind of times in your life when you've been on a learning curve. That's when you're more likely to, make mistakes or not know exactly how to do things perfectly. And so that we earned that superhost status during this period of extreme growth really speaks to the dedication of our team. We've had many people on our team, managing these pings and dings, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just so grateful to them for the physical labor that they've put into these units, the emotional labor of getting everything online, making sure our marketing looks great, managing our customer service experience. And it has resulted in 108,000 of revenue in the last 30 days. You can see Nick calls it our revenue slingshot. It started very, very small in October of last year and then escalated nicely. We had really good experience through the peak season here in Rochester when a lot of people are coming to Rochester for care at Mayo. Now we're experiencing a bit of that seasonal decline that we know happens at Mayo, but very excited about what we were able to accomplish in just 1 year, and excited to see what this looks like next year. Because if this is what we could do while we are growing, what we will be able to do as we're maturing, really exciting.
Absolutely. Yep. So direct bookings are the lifeblood of your short-term rental business. You can't be overly reliant on Airbnb. When we started out, 100% of our revenue was coming from Airbnb, which is not a great spot to be. In Q2 of this year, 82% of our bookings came from Airbnb. And I think when I looked at like the last 7 days or something like that, 55% of our bookings came from Airbnb. So I was unbelievably excited to see that. It fluctuates a lot day to day, week to week, but over time, the trend is clear. We're getting massive amounts of direct bookings. I think we had like 32% direct bookings here in the last 30 days. This is absolutely huge. We have a new website that Sophie is about to launch here. We just need to flip the domain name, improving our SEO and organic marketing, and just getting repeat business. People love to stay with us. And when we can book off platform, we don't have to worry about Airbnb escalations, customer service issues, having someone between you and the customer. And most importantly, we don't enjoy those Airbnb fees. So the guest pays less and we get more. And it's just a win-win for the people that we serve and for ourselves. So that's a huge strategic effort to have as little reliance as possible on Airbnb. And this is probably the biggest operational change, not just for our short-term line of business, but for our whole company here this past quarter. So we brought on a second shift. So we have people that are staffing the front desk at RDS. So when you walk in, it's not just this creepy vacant, white box like a dead shopping mall. It now looks like a luxury hotel with ample plush seating, and there's a person there at the front desk to greet you. And we've got people that are monitoring our short-term rentals, monitoring the communication, and kind of staffing that front desk when they're not serving a tenant or a guest 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So just think about the class of service difference going from walking into an apartment building where there isn't a person at a front desk to walking to an apartment building where there is. And this is one of our favorite things about short-term rentals is it kind of elevates the whole portfolio. So it's not just that we're getting a premium on those furnished units. It's that everyone that lives there now has this concierge level of service. So it's a big change for our company to have someone at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday. It's not like a normal property management company or apartment building doesn't have that. And we now have that. And those people surveil leasing inquiries, customer service inquiries, emergency maintenance tickets. So the level of customer service we're able to provide to everyone in the whole portfolio is just so much stronger. And those 2 a.m. check-ins, we now have that fully staffed. We've got a dedicated on-call person for that.
Awesome. Very excited about our short-term rental and so grateful to our team for the huge amount of work that they have put into this effort over the last year. And now we're seeing the real benefits of that. Yep. Someone had asked, does the RDS rent roll include short-term rental income? So I think what that person is referring to is earlier when we shared the rent growth, it does not. Yep. So we only compared apples to apples. So we compared the long-term rental average at time of acquisition versus our long-term rental rent roll average in September of 2024. We felt like including the short-term rental income would have been a little misleading because of course it's way higher, and that wasn't a service line that was previously offered at RDS. So there was no, Apple to compare it to. So we only compared long-term to long-term. All the benefit from short-term is gravy on top of that.
They did have some furnished units that were all bills paid. So they were collecting a premium, a rental amount when we took over. So that actually biases it against us both ways, that we took the units that were already furnished units off the rent roll. So those, most premium rental rates. So we still achieved massive rent growth despite our furnished rentals not being on the rent roll. And when we took over, those furnished units being on the rent roll. But that's getting deep in the weeds, but we wanted to answer that question there. Absolutely. And that came in from Facebook, from our Facebook Live, from someone on an airplane. So we are living in a new space age, my friends.
Wow, awesome! How do you know she's on an airplane?
Right here. Pull up the Facebook Live. Look at that! Isn't that cool?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. It is 2024. We are a quarter of the way through the century. All right, let's share some specific updates for residents at Discovery Square. I kind of summarized this at the top of our time together. So, the summary of this acquisition, is we bought a Class A building that had been built in late 2019. Wonderful building, great units, great amenities. It didn't really need any, physical renovations. It was only a few years old. But when it was built, it had been designed for ground floor commercial, say like a restaurant, a coffee shop, a hair salon, those sorts of things. Well, unfortunately, we all know what happened in 2020. So when we acquired it in April of 2023, all of that ground floor commercial space was still completely vacant. So that was the value add plan, was to buy this building and to convert the first floor from commercial space to residential units. We got approval from the city. We worked with a builder, did all of the physical work that had to happen to get those units online. Took about 9 months to go from the blank empty space to our certificate of occupancy. So we have all of that done. I believe we had completed that right at when we did our Q2 quarterly update. So that's exciting. 16 of those were operating as short-term rentals. 5 were operating as long-term rentals. We completed our common area improvements. So historically, when you walked into the building, it almost sort of felt like you were walking into like a parking garage, right? It was just like a big sort of concrete structure, and it sort of
big empty box.
Yeah, sort of defied the imagination of like, oh, I thought I was coming to, look at like a luxury, apartment community, but it sort of felt like you were walking into a parking garage.
You would see about 15,000 square feet of nothing,
of concrete,
just off into the horizon.
Yeah, so we completed all of that common area build out. You can see one of the many seating areas that we have there. So how we design that is kind of like what you might find in an upscale hotel, where there's lots of little kind of designated seating areas. There's like a large chess game. There's a bookshelf, board games, those sorts of things. There's like a little more of like an eating area with high top tables. So it looks great when you come in. It feels very welcoming. A lot of people do use it if they're, meeting a friend or waiting to be picked up by an Uber or something like that. We also added a theater, which has some seating, a big screen TV, a popcorn machine. It looks really cute. Like you can fit maybe 8 or 10 people in it. Keep in mind that a whole floor of this building is leased to University of Minnesota Rochester, and so those college students love using that theater. Our parking lot is complete. That took a lot of working with the city to get permission to convert that space into surface parking. So not only does it look great, it's kind of like the eyeliner of the building. It just looks pristine, but it is also a huge value add because we desperately need parking spaces in this downtown campus for all of our residents, and then particularly for our short-term residents. So huge value add to get that done. And this was kind of a race against the clock. So we were under contract on RDS in late 2022. And of course, we wanted to assume that loan because it was in the 2s for the interest rate. The bank didn't necessarily want us to assume that loan because it was in the 2s. And so it took a lot of work to get that loan assumption approved, which then moved our closing to April of 2023. And so it was a race against the clock to get all of these physical improvements complete in about a year's time. And we pulled it off on time and on budget, which I don't know, it was a whirlwind. There were days when I think Nick was spending, probably 7 hours of, say, a typical 8-hour workday, exclusively on RDS, talking with the city and city council and the architects and the engineers and the parking lot company and all of those things. And so very excited about what we were able to accomplish with RDS in the 1.5 years that we've owned it.
So let's talk about how that had a financial impact. From March to July, which is when those new units came online, we increased gross income for the building from 200 to 282,000. So that 20% was actually from last quarter's webinar. I didn't update that 20%. So what's 282 divided by 200? Let's bust out the calculator here. We're struggling. There we go. 282 divided by 2. There we go. That is a 40% increase in gross income in that building in just a few months. Absolutely incredible to have a building. It's an entire city block. It's a big ship to turn. So a massive sprint in increase in gross income, and then a comparable increase in net operating income as well. So I jokingly called this the revenue slingshot. Short-term rentals helped a lot. Bringing those new units online helped a lot. Having more parking helped a lot. There were a ton of factors that went into it, and it happened just in time for us to have a couple of months of seasoned, proven income to be able to take to a bank to get our new financing in place. This was a nail biter. There's a reason I was spending 7 hours a day on it, because there was a big target to hit. It's very difficult. We bought this with just a tiny down payment, only $3 million down on a $27 million purchase. If we would have gotten new financing, we probably would have put about 13 to 16 million down, depending on the different lending offers that we saw. I don't know about you, but I'd rather put 3 million down than put 13 to 16 million down. And of course, those new lending offers back then were at like 8.5%. Whereas we're able to assume in-place financing at 2.8%.
I think earlier I had said 2.5%. I forgot that one of the
2.3%.
and then one of the last things that the bank said was, "Oh, we'll let you do it, but we have to have a little bump." So it was 2.8%, but it was still sub 3% that we've been able to enjoy on $27 million of debt in the last.
The building's actually been cash flow positive through this whole thing. It's been absolutely, it's a giant construction site, huge building, just their interest rate's so low. Seller carried a fair amount at 0% in addition to that. So getting to cash neutral financing where we don't have to put money into that new loan is very challenging, very tough target to hit in a very short span of time. We're just giving ourselves a 1-day grace period. Current debt expires October 31st. New debt closes October 30th, and we have crazy favorable terms on that new debt. 30-year amortization, 6.25% rate, not too bad. Only a $66,000 origination fee. So it would not be uncommon to spend several $100,000 just on origination fees alone for a loan of this size. And altogether, we'll see what the final cash to close is and stuff. But it seems like we should bring perhaps $500,000, $500,000 cash to close to that new financing. So I'm just over the moon with what we've been able to achieve on this building in an incredibly short period of time. So when we can share that new appraisal number, we'll give you some return calculations. Probably the best deal we've ever done.
Absolutely. Let's talk about updates that we have for Black Swan Real Estate Fund 2. So the story of Fund 2 for Q3 was really all about Tanara Villa. This is our largest asset in our Tacoma market. And we really put the pedal to the metal at the beginning of Q3 saying, hey, this quarter has to be the story of Tanara. So we've poured all of our resources into this project over the last 90 days. We now have 42 heavy renovations complete. So we consider it to be a heavy renovation if we're like completely redoing the bathroom, completely redoing the kitchen, new cabinets, new countertops. 42 of those are done. 30 light renovations are complete. So light for us means that we're like, say, painting the cabinets and putting on new countertops, but not taking the cabinets out, or maybe doing a little bit less in the bathroom. We have about 20 construction workers on site every day, which is a lot of people for a 100 plus unit community. There's like a buzz of activity, which is what we wanted in this quarter. Nick was just in Tacoma about a week and a half ago.
Yep.
And personally walked every single renovation that we have in flight to get up to the minute data on how all of those renovations are going, what status all of them are in, how things are looking, quality, cost, all of those things.
They're long days. I walked every single vacant unit in the entire Tacoma portfolio, taking notes on unit status, looking at rent roll. Like on our rent roll, we had one more vacancy than was in like our construction pipeline document that we used to track construction units at Tanara. And so we're calling different property managers, different construction managers. Are we missing a unit? That's a fear that we have. We'll sometimes lose a unit for like a week or so in Rochester here because there's just so many units coming and going. And there was someone who was transferring units that was going to switch to a rehab down. So they're long days walking our units, just making sure we have very close physical tabs on everything that's going on in the Tacoma portfolio. But man, did it feel good to walk Tanara. Just the transformation that's happened in this site is absolutely staggering. We've got a few photos of that here on the next slide. So there's a photo of the clubhouse renovations that are happening in the bottom center. Some of the landscaping on the bottom left. We're doing some hydro seed, I think today. We've got one of our new dog parks. There's 2 new dog parks there in the top right corner, and then our parking lot in the bottom right corner. As we've shared on previous webinars, we've had a lot of regulatory hurdles to cross with this project. The local municipality has seen the transformation making happen and feeling like we need to pull more permits or something like that. So this trick with the parking lot at Tacoma, we learned this at RDS. So most municipalities hate parking lots, even though they're needed. So what we figured out at RDS was if we just got a permit for a place where you'd put a construction trailer and you'd park construction vehicles, so you put down gravel. We got class 5 gravel. City's fine with that. It's when you put down asphalt that they start to freak out, and you need to do stormwater pollution prevention plans and stormwater management runoff calculations, and have 10 civil engineers review your 3 parking spaces you're adding. At RDS in Rochester, we just had a gravel parking lot for over a year because that's all we could get permitted. We took it to the next level in Tacoma. So at Tanara, you can see we have curb and gutter. We've got concrete sidewalks and everything with gravel, and we're going to staple burlap straps down to the class 5 gravel, because you can't have an impermeable surface. That is a violation of stormwater pollution prevention rules. So we're just gonna have a gravel lot there probably for several years, as long as it takes the city civil engineering group to review our plans and determine that they're acceptable. So it's unfortunate that it takes the government so long to process what should be relatively trivial things. But in the meantime, we have a lot of additional parking at Tanara, which is desperately needed as we made additional improvements to this property. So I'm proud of that hack that we achieved there.
Ingenuity.
Yeah. So our rent roll at Tanara, let's talk about how all this, just tireless work has impacted the numbers. Our rent roll is up 51% year to date at Tanara. Again, this is a 130 unit property. This is a large property. Pulling up your rent roll, 51% in
and that's just year to date.
That's just year to date.
Not from our acquisition date.
Yeah, just staggering. And then it just appraised as is at 30.4 million. We bought it for 23 million. We're less than 27 million all in. So we've created over $3 million of equity in that project in a relatively short period of time. And we're still at like our messy middle, right? Mm-hmm. There is a 30-foot tall mound of dirt that we're fighting to get city approval to.
I mean, this is our clubhouse, right?
That's our clubhouse.
It's still studs.
So somehow we're at 30.
There's value to go.
So we're unbelievably excited with the financial outcomes we've had at Tanara Villa. We have poured all of our Tacoma resources into this project to prepare for our phase 2 financing. So our phase 1 financing took us through renovating, doing a deep value add on about 40 units. And then we've renovated, done a light value add on a bunch of additional units. And our phase 2 financing will allow us to renovate another tranche of units. So we're very excited to see that carry forward.
Next up is Kensington and Lauriston. These are a bit smaller assets in Fund 2 in our Tacoma portfolio. We have 5 active renovations happening at Kensington and 1 happening at Lauriston. They're not technically neighbors. There's 1 building in between, but they kind of function as neighboring properties. They're held in one special purpose entity. We're doing some light renovations there. We're having a lot of consistent rent growth. You can see there in September of 2023, our rents were right under 1,000, probably around like $975. And now about a year later, our rents are $1,225. Of the units that we've completed deep value add renovations, you can see those are our kitchens. Beautiful cabinets, beautiful aesthetics. The pools are just beautiful. The appliances, everything just looks really amazing. We went with a lighter color on our LVP for this project. And then these showers are, what I would consider to be like, top-notch hotel quality showers with large tile that goes all the way to the ceiling, premium, rolling glass. It makes this, a little bit of a smaller space in the bathroom, defy the imagination. It feels much bigger. There's no wasted space. There's no kind of shower curtain hanging over, say, where your sink or your toilet is. And it just looks amazing. I think it's a level of finish that is unexpected at this price point. So we are very excited about the renovations happening there at Kensington and Lauriston.
You can see our year-over-year rent growth there. 25% year-over-year rent growth, just staggering. So that's just in 1 year's time. Staggering rent growth at that particular building. I love how our light value add, that's in the bottom left corner, and then the heavy value add is the bottom center, bottom right. Like even the light renovation looks amazing. So yeah, very successful project there.
Next up is Garfield. This is also in Fund 2. So this is a building, mixed use, ground floor commercial, and then upper level residential units, kind of right on the campus of Pacific Lutheran University. So students sort of, walk on this sidewalk to and from class twice a day. It was in rough condition when we acquired it. Both the residential units and then the commercial units were in even worse condition. One of the few acquisitions that we had that, was a little bit physically unsafe.
Yeah. Fortunately, this building was the epicenter of that physical lack of safety. And this is probably this and like Douglas Trail are the two projects I'm most proud of in terms of the turnaround effort we've been able to impact. Rachel might be able to dig up the Main Street video walk down Main Street that we put on YouTube here recently. Being able to curate, not just the residential tenants and the huge impact that they have on the culture of that community. And, if you live in our properties, you have to follow the rules and you can't break the law. And that by itself has a huge uplift effect on the community. But curating those main floor tenants to get really nice tenants that are a huge value to the community.
And so, in everything that we do in our community, we don't like the feeling of physical unsafety, but it particularly bothered us that this was so close to a college campus. And so just really excited about what we've been able to accomplish here. We consider this project to be fully stabilized. So how we describe something as fully stabilized is that we've completed all of our physical renovations. We're in that post lease up period, right? When you're first leasing new units that are coming out of your construction pipeline, it's a little more activity and flurry going on. And then when you start to get into just renewals and normal natural turnover, things start to stabilize. So we think we're ahead of schedule on Garfield. We closed on this in December of 2022. We have no vacant residential units. We funded all of these renovations from cash flow, so we didn't have a construction loan on this one at all.
That's a big deal. We funded all the renovations on this asset from cash flow. So like that's a huge transformation to happen on the back of no construction loan, no additional construction escrow at closing or anything like that. And then the outcome there, a 44% increase in the total rent roll. That's the residential plus commercial rent roll. Now that we finally have those commercial bays all full, there's one vacant bay, but it's the former site office, so it's kind of it's not very desirable to lease. We're gonna have to do a pretty big turn on that to lease it. I'm gonna say that the commercial space is full, and the residential units, there's zero vacancies. So just 44% year-to-date growth in total rent roll, absolutely incredible. Our most successful project ever in Tacoma, not just in financials, but just the huge impact that we've had on that community.
Mm-hmm. Next up is Dakota Townhomes. So you may all remember this as Douglas Trail Townhomes. So we've never done this before where we've officially like rebranded and changed the name of a community, but we felt like the transformation that we had executed at Georgetown like really required that we rebrand it so that we could present it to the community in a new light. I'm sorry, I think I might have said Georgetown because I read it off of the slide. This was previously Douglas Trail, and now it's Dakota. So the D and the D kind of helps you remember the rebranding there. We're finishing up our fitness center. As I mentioned at the top of our time together, we have our appraisal scheduled for October 18th, starting those initial conversations for our cash out refi. This is really the roadmap for Georgetown. So Dakota is 100 units of income restricted LIHTC, just a few miles away from Georgetown, which is 132 units income restricted LIHTC. They were both built in like the first couple of years of the 2000s. They have very similar floor plans, very similar finishes, kind of similar campuses. So we just knew we had so much success with Douglas Trail and the huge turnaround that we had there that when the Georgetown acquisition came across our desk, it was a no-brainer that we would, do whatever it took to get that asset so that we could have another opportunity to have a big turnaround project there at Georgetown. Our January rent roll was 108,000, and our September rent roll is 127,000. So you can see the escalation of rents from when we acquired it in late 2022. We were right over 1,000 per unit. And now in September of 2024, we're at about 1,360 per unit. So very excited about the physical renovations that we've had there. This was the biggest management shift that we've ever had. About 50% of the residents were in some state of non-paying, just because of lack of attention from the prior management company. In Rochester, every single unit has to have a rental license, and the whole community was in danger of losing its rental license, which would just be unbelievably catastrophic. Every single roof needed to be replaced. We took down, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 30 dead trees, right? Like not just ugly, but huge safety hazards. Just really a
Mhm.
from a management perspective. I mean, we did a ton of physical renovations there, but from a management perspective, one of our hardest turnarounds, probably the one that I have been most involved in. I would say Nick was kind of taking care of RDS and I was taking care of Douglas Trail. And of course, we're involved in all of the assets. But if we were, doing like studies of our time, that's where we would see that a lot of our individual time has gone over the last year or so.
Mhm. The Riverview. So we just purchased 5 more units here. We've got one under contract, and we're down to, I think, 5 owners left, less than 10 total units that we can potentially purchase, and then we'll own the entire building. We've got 2 short-term rentals online. This is where we've had some of our most successful rentals because this building was actually built as it was ahead of its time. It was a condominiumized like extended stay. Like if you bought into like a co-op in Orlando or something today, and you could like Airbnb out your unit. It was that concept, but in the year 2000. So we're just slowly acquiring those remaining units. We have almost all of them today. So some of the, we hypothetically could be doing distributions for Fund 2 right now, but we spent like $1 million on purchasing new units at Riverview. We're about to get financing on those units. We buy those units with cash, and then we get our cash out after we purchase them, maybe do a small renovation depending on the condition of the unit when we buy it. And we've just got a small number of units left to go, and then we're going to own this whole building. We're doing a huge parking expansion here. There's several capital projects that are still ongoing. And this has been a very successful building. I could see us doing a lot of very successful short-term rentals here in the immediate future.
Didn't you just authorize 2 more? I think I
Yes.
saw some emails going
Yep, I
across your
don't think
desk.
we have
Yep.
them under contract, but
No, 2 more short-term rentals.
oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we got
Yep.
two more that are underway right now.
Yep. Next up is Colby. So Colby is a relatively small.
By the way, we're 58 minutes in, and we are 30 out of 47 slides in. I'm really proud of the time we're making. Say y'all are welcome to chime in with questions if you have any questions here. I'm proud of how much faster we're getting through this than our historical fund updates. Maybe I've jinxed it here, but feel free to pepper chat with questions as we go through.
Yeah. Colby was a relatively small acquisition, 32 units plus 2 single-family homes and a small piece of vacant land. Really acquired this as a redevelopment play. Was in very extreme physical distress when we acquired it. We did a minor renovation here so that we feel comfortable and proud to operate this as existing residential real estate for the years that it will take to do our redevelopment effort here. So we're 2/3 of the way through our unit renovations there. We were able to buy this with cash, do some renovations, and then do a cash out refi, and kind of moved those dollars along in Fund 2 so that we could acquire RDS in Fund 2 as well. Just got some news back actually this morning.
This morning.
Yeah, we got a lot of good news this
It's
morning. Things are really coming together. So we did our soil borings, and those came back, great, which is, really what you want. That's critical for determining our parking structure of, how deep into the ground can we go to get, underground parking. And there's lots of different configurations in terms of trying to optimize the unit count, the unit mix, the parking count, how the parking is situated on the lot. So we're working on, a 50 million plus new construction apartment building. We have some different renderings and designs from our architect. This is a multi-year project, on the scale of somewhere between 4 and 7 years for a project like this. And then in the meantime, we just operate it as a nice cash flowing property that's, very close to Mayo Clinic, smaller units that single individuals love to live in. So right now, what we're working on is a 7-story structure with 2 levels of parking. One of the levels would be above ground, one would be below ground, and then we would have 5 stories of residential units. And really just thinking about how can we use all of the space most efficiently to get the highest unit count there. This parcel is right on what's called the bus rapid transit line that the city is doing as one of its major capital projects as part of Destination Medical Center. So it's already a great site that's walkable to Mayo Clinic, and then we'll get even better as the city finishes that BRT line in the next couple of years to make access into Mayo even better. If you're looking at this picture down here at the bottom, Colby is this, not the first building furthest to the right of the image, but the second. It's actually both of them. I'm sorry, both of those buildings, because it's 2 16-unit buildings.
Plus all this back here. Yeah.
Plus the parking in the back and those couple of single family homes in the back. And then the building in the background of the picture that's black and gold brick, that's the Berkman.
Most valuable apartment building in the state.
Most valuable apartment building in the entire state of Minnesota. And then you can't see it because it's just right behind that, but that's the inpatient clinic portion of Mayo Clinic. So very walkable, probably about a 6-minute walk to Mayo.
Yeah. There's lots of great questions came in, by the way. This renovation on Colby will be part of Fund 2. So that would be so we're mostly done with our renovations of Colby, but at some point we'll probably knock down Colby and then redevelop it into this huge project. That would be in a future fund that redevelopment would take place, and Fund 2 could potentially like roll in its equity, the value of the land, or it could sell from one fund to the other. If there was like a sale or equity, we'd probably, like get 3 appraisals, and whatever the middle value is would be the value that would be used to determine the numbers and the value that transacts between those funds. Unclear when that redevelopment effort would happen, though. Just rates are high, costs are high. It's not a very, very favorable time to break ground on new construction, but that's what that would probably look like. Excellent question.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
And that's many, many years in the future. But we would probably put that to like a vote to the Fund 2 investors of, kind of here's what things might look like if Fund 2 sells its equity to a future fund, because Fund 2 is not large enough, to take on, a $50 million project would be another 10 million liquid, right, to do the construction loan. Or this is what the numbers would look like if Fund 2 held its equity stake, and we'll probably put it to a vote of the investors. But again, that's many years away, 10,000 variables between here and there.
Yeah, Emily said, will the existing Colby be torn down when the new 7-floor apartment building is built? Yes, excellent questions, just so that's crystal clear. The renovations we're doing on Colby are very basic renovations. It was kind of a D- asset when we bought it. We want it to be at least a C, just for us to manage it and sleep well at night and know that we're serving people, providing clean, safe housing. But we're not doing knockout renovations, because the idea is that eventually we will tear down the entire building.
Next up are our updates for Fund 3. So Fund 3 is a $15 million fund. We opened and closed it in February of 2024. Value add multifamily in Rochester, Minnesota, and Tacoma, Washington. The acquisitions that we have, all of Fund 3 has been spoken for. So the acquisitions that will go into Fund 3 are Uptown Apartments, the Viking House triplex, 2 single-family homes, Bayswater, Baycrest, Georgetown. Those are all closed. And then Boulder Ridge, which will close at the end of this year. So Bayswater is in our Tacoma portfolio. Long and challenging transition, just really
income restricted community, just like Douglas Trail, Dakota. Not nearly as distressed, but similar, kind of tenant population. Big difference between this and Dakota, though, is that we had to vacate a very large number of tenants when we took over Dakota. Just they were not paying rent. They weren't following the rules. They weren't following the law. And that has not been the case at Bayswater. It's been a long, kind of arduous process, but 0 tenants have vacated since we bought Bayswater. I'm going to say that again. 0 tenants have vacated since we bought Bayswater in April. And we had to deal with all sorts of interesting situations. There were 2 units that were actually abandoned. The seller told us that there were tenants paying rent in there, and vacating tenants in LIHTC communities can be a complex process. It can actually be unclear. Is the unit actually abandoned or not? And then there's a legal process you need to go through for vacating personal property from an abandoned unit in a LIHTC community. So no units that were actually occupied by people have been vacated since we bought that property. And at this time, it feels like, knock on wood, we're set up for relatively smooth sailing through December 2025, when the income restriction expires on that community.
Contrast that with Baycrest, completely unrelated community. It's just a complete coincidence that they have almost the exact same names. We acquired them in the same fund at almost the exact same time. That was our smoothest transition ever.
Yes.
Stable, quiet, a bit of a yield play here. We are doing, some physical renovations in the common areas in some of the units, but it's just a really lovely community. It has glimpses of the water, which is really special in Tacoma.
I think we're calling them peekaboo water views.
Yep. So we've done 2 light renovations there, and then we do have 2 units down for heavy renovation. So smaller updates there. As we mentioned, we're pouring the extreme majority of our resources in Tacoma into Tanara. Next up is Uptown Apartments. That one's here in Rochester. Beautiful asset, relatively new construction. Acquired it from a great property management company that we've had many acquisitions with over the years. They're ownership and leadership group is about 30, 40 years older than us. And so it's just kind of been this nice transition that as they decide they no longer want to be active in the industry, we are young and hungry and eager to be active. So we've acquired lots of stuff from them over the years. This was a really nice acquisition in that we had a rent guarantee for many months after closing. So that allowed us, financial stability and security in terms of getting the vacant units leased. We are now at $17.30 per month for our average rent. So we've increased our rental rate 7%, and that was just since April. So in about 6 months, and keep in mind that's with no physical renovations because these units are already, very brand new. Very smooth transition. Similar in, kind of vibe to Nicholas or New 52, which really were, newer buildings that didn't require much at all in terms of physical renovations and really were management improvement plays.
Georgetown and Boulder Ridge. So we're crazy excited about these assets. Fund 3 and Fund 4 will split these 50-50. Fund 3 is completely full and allocated. Fund 4 is nearly full. I think we've got maybe 2 million left, maybe a little bit more than 2 million left in room on Fund 4 right now. So very excited with how those are going. We just did a whole deep dive webinar on Georgetown townhomes.
No, we did that on Boulder Ridge.
Dang it.
Well, we did this one a few weeks ago, so it does exist.
We could throw some links in the chat with each of those maybe. Beautiful community that's just done exceptionally well through our transition there. Large LIHTC townhome community, mixed income. So some units are income restricted, some are not. Our headline there is $2 to $3 million of day one equity when we purchased that. Really favorable Fannie Mae debt at 5.6% fixed, eligible for supplementally cash out refis. We're unbelievably excited about the debt we got there. Massive value add plan where we're going to improve water and gas usage, optimize our unit mix. We're going to lower our property taxes by 30%. There's so many deep value add kind of management improvements we're making to this asset. We're going to add millions of dollars of value. We're expecting to be able to bump the value of the asset by $5 million over just the next few years. So incredibly proud of what we're achieving here at Georgetown Townhomes. And Boulder Ridge is coming soon.
So there is a whole webinar. Rachel just put the link in. We'll make sure all of these links go in the replay email as well. And then, of course, you can just search for them on YouTube as well. So there was a whole webinar and a deep dive of Georgetown. These are the highlights. And then next up is Boulder Ridge. So we did just do that deep dive, I think, about a week ago or so.
This Monday, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was
time flies.
Twice this week. Yeah. Trying to cram in all of our speaking before this baby comes. So there's a full presentation on Boulder Ridge, but here's some of the highlights.
Yeah. So this is very similar to Georgetown in a lot of ways. It's a very high quality B-class townhome community. The biggest kind of mic drop moment here is that we offered on a directly comparable property about 2 years ago, Egan Gables Townhomes, and that property transacted for a per unit sales price that is 33% higher than our per unit purchase price on Boulder Ridge. So we are walking in with millions and millions of dollars of equity on this particular deal. We're unbelievably excited with our basis, with our per unit purchase price on this deal. We're assuming an in-place HUD loan that's at just 4.47%. So getting some really, really favorable financing. It's not easy to go through that process. It's going to cost me.
Apparently the commas matter.
The commas matter. Oh man, the level of detail on this stuff it's incredible. The current group that's operating that asset, they're burning through about $500,000 of cash per year. They're running negative $500,000 in cash flow. There's no site maintenance. There's no site management. One of the worst kind of operational situations we've ever encountered. So we have a huge opportunity to add massive value. In fact, we expect that we're going to add about $1 million to NOI in just the first few years of owning this asset. So more uplift in terms of NOI than just about any other project out there, other than maybe like RDS or something like that. So all in all, we're gonna add we could add $10 million of value to this asset. One of the best deals we've ever done. 2024 will be our best year for acquisitions. The few groups that are doing well, that are stable, that aren't struggling with their legacy deals, they're cleaning up this year, and that very much describes us.
Yeah, this is our highest growth year. We'll have about 75 million of acquisitions this year.
Yeah, every single deal in Fund 4 has a minimum of $2 million day one equity. It's staggering the deals that we've been able to get.
Next up is Blackstone Real Estate Fund 4. So this is our Stonehaven Apartments. As you may know, we've built Stonehaven townhomes over the last several years. That's outside of any of our funds. But we did phase 1, 2, and 3 of our townhome community. We kind of think of Stonehaven Apartments as like phase 4 of that overall community, have had staggering success with building the townhome community. And then this is just the next parcel over. And we specifically chose to do apartments here as opposed to more townhomes because the number one reason why people would not lease at Stonehaven townhomes is that the units were too large and too expensive. So we have 2 and 3 bedroom townhomes, and then now we will have 1 and 2 bedroom apartment units so that we can kind of cover that full spectrum of housing needs in this community. We've structured it to physically look like our townhomes and to feel like our townhomes. Most specifically, what you see here is that every single unit will have its own garage, kind of similar, where you just push the button in your car, just like at a single family home or in a townhome. So it will still have some of that townhome feel, despite the fact that it's smaller units and it is indeed an apartment building. So basically what we did with Stonehaven Apartments is, since we've been working on Stonehaven townhomes, we've been working on Stonehaven Apartments behind the scenes for about 18 months, acquiring the land, getting it zoned from commercial to residential, getting a tax abatement for $300,000 from the city, getting it approved for an increase in unit count, increase in unit density, getting a few more parking spots approved, all of the things that take up a lot of time. They don't necessarily cost very much money. It's things like, going to city council meetings, meeting with the mayor, those sorts of things, but take up a lot of time. And in terms of investor dollars, you want investor dollars to come in as late as possible, because if they're just kind of sitting in the bank while you're having all those city council meetings and those sorts of things, then intuitively your overall return is going to be lower because your time frame will be much longer. So we worked on all of that behind the scenes, and then once we were ready to pull our permits and we had everything approved, that's when we launched Stonehaven Apartments into Fund 4. So we have really favorable debt, 5-year term, 3 years of interest only, an 80% LTC, 7% rate, very, very low origination fee, just $17,500, and most importantly, no prepayment penalty, so that we can build this thing, fill it, increase the value, and then refinance it when rates come down, kind of all in that same time frame. And then just based on the appraisal alone, so we'll have $9 million of total cost into the construction, and it appraised as what's called an as complete appraisal of $11 million. So we'll have $2 million of equity, based on our third party appraisal. The day the building is finished, we should get delivery of this building in April or May of next year. So right in time for our peak leasing season. We have full confidence that we'll be able to get this thing substantially filled next summer. And just kind of all of the stars have aligned from a timing perspective, a weather perspective, to build it as quickly as possible. Well, first to, front load all of that time intensive stuff before it was ever an active deal available to our investors, build it as quickly as possible, and then build it right at the right time of the calendar year to benefit from our high leasing season here in Rochester. Mm-hmm. And then here's some beautiful pictures of it.
Stonehaven sunrise.
Yeah, so I drove by it yesterday, try to visit it about once a week or so. Happened to be there very early in the morning, and it just looked so beautiful. Just kind of that like crisp fall feeling. This was about 7:40 in the morning. I mean, look how many people are already on site. So it's just new construction is so fun when you see, what was a field, right? To first see that field leveled and all the dirt work to happen, and then to see, the concrete going in. You can see where the garages will be. You can see some of the utility lines. It's a good feeling, and it's good to see that it's all unfolding exactly as planned.
All right, so just to wrap it up, to end where we started here, Q3 probably the strongest quarter in the history of the company. We're unbelievably just we're celebrating every day right now. We got some insanely good news on our RDS appraisal. We've got our new financing coming in place that's going to give us a huge win there. We just happened to get a Tenara appraisal the same week, which we didn't really expect good news, but man, oh man, did we get some good news there. Dakota Townhomes has its appraisal scheduled here for October 18th. So that'll be the first big cash out refi in Fund 2. We closed on Georgetown Townhomes. That was a pretty big deal. Picked up several $1 million of equity on that closing date. We won Best of the Best Property Management Company, Best Apartment Building in Rochester. We need to start printing all of our signage right now. We got 5 more units at Riverview, just a few more to go. Massive, massive, massive rent growth across the whole portfolio. And our team is resting easy this slow season as we go into the slow season with less than 2% vacancy here in the Rochester portfolio. So just things are so good right now. And critically, no capital calls and on-time distributions across the board. So that's something that not a lot of groups
And
can say right now.
lots of equity being created at the same time, right? So
it's been a good week for that.
The trend in multifamily values over the last several years has been loss of value, right? Because of the inverse correlation between interest rates and value. But when you buy at a good price and you have such a proven value add plan, we've been able to just race beyond, market norms and create equity, as evidenced by third-party appraisals. So someone asked, I think on our last quarterly update, if we would share what we thought, say like someone's value of shares are in say fund 1, fund 2, if say someone put in $100,000, like what's the value of their shares? And I said, I'm a little weary to do that because that would really come from like Nick and I's estimation of the value of those properties. When we had third-party appraisals in hand, that's when I would do that. So in Q4, now that we'll have several appraisals from some of the largest assets in all of the private equity funds, we'll put together those numbers and give you a projection, right? It's not an actual sale, so it's not proven in the market, but our projection based on third-party appraisals and then our best interpretation of all of the data of what your shares are worth. Because I want you to be able to reflect on your own, say, net worth trackers or balance statements, balance sheets, the growth that you're experiencing as an investor by having your dollars in these projects.
So some really good questions here. Someone just asked, when will Fund 4 distributions likely begin? So Q4 2025, Rachel already replied there. I think it could potentially even happen sooner than that, just depending on how things go. Depends on how quickly we close on Boulder Ridge, how much cash we end up putting into that project. But Fund 4 could start some really fast distributions, just depending on how those assets line up. Do you expect all the remaining owners to sell? So that was in regards to Riverview. Yes, we do. There are a couple of folks that have not been excited to sell, but we're just working with them. Some of them want to do 1031 exchanges. They're all investors, so it's a numbers thing to them. It's not like there's some owner occupant holdout or something like that. That's something that is that type of battle. Climate change considerations when looking at assets, locations like Tacoma or any other changes in current assets. So yes, actually. And Minnesota, if you look at different projections and stuff, has a better upside potential than any other state in the country. There's more reserves of free fresh water in Minnesota than any other state in the union, and has more to gain and less to lose from climate change than any other state. We're a state that's not afflicted by natural disasters, so it's not like Texas or Florida from that perspective. And if things were slightly warmer in Minnesota, most people would probably be okay with that. It's not going to get so warm that all the crops die or anything like that. And then if fresh water ever does become an extraordinarily precious resource, we have more reserves of free fresh water than the other state. And then
Nick has been talking about this for like 7 or 8 years. And honestly, I used to just be like, Nick, you're crazy. And I would walk away. And just unfortunately, with the changes that we're seeing so rapidly related to climate change, it is much more of a consideration than it was, many years ago. So I'm sorry that I told you were crazy all those years ago.
We divested from Oklahoma largely because of Oklahoma will probably become a desert in our lifetime. Just that's what is happening. It's not a political statement. You just see the change in topography there that Oklahoma will probably be a desert in our lifetime. All the growth in, I'm sorry, I'm kind of dominating the questions here.
Okay. Go for it.
All the growth in Fund 2 that has been used to roll back into renovations and refi costs. And once through the refi process, then distribution start. Excellent question, Adam. That's a very deep insight. And I think most people don't really realize this is a big deal. So like Fund 1, we've kind of turned that capital twice. We're not acquiring anything else in Fund 1, but we bought like a whole portfolio of single family homes, did a cash out refi, and then bought a $30 million apartment building with that money. Fund 2, we took some of our reserves that we kept on hand for RDS and for Riverview because we need to set aside money to finish those projects. And we bought Colby. Then we did a whole cash out refi on Colby in the time that money maybe would have been like sitting in the bank just getting, getting an interest rate or something like that. This is like the cheat code of having a private equity fund is you can go spool up additional assets under management with that same bucket of resources. But we have to be really careful about that because our investors, they care about getting those distributions, right? They want that money today. Money tomorrow is more abstract, and it would actually probably benefit us from like a PR perspective if we didn't turn that capital and leverage it up like that, because we'd be able to return capital more quickly. But at the end of the day, if you have an opportunity to get a free apartment building, like let's get that free apartment building. If you have an opportunity to shoehorn a $30 million asset into a fund that you've already turned over that capital one time, that's probably a pretty good move. You should probably do that. So that's like a really deep insight there, Adam. And yes, so we could theoretically like launch a new fund to buy units in Riverview or something like that. But the thing that makes the most sense is for Fund 2 to own all those assets, all those units in Riverview. And what that means is we have to pay out distributions slower today in Fund 2 so that Fund 2 has better long-term financial outcomes. That's something that Elaine and I talk about, probably once a month is like, we could make different financial decisions in the funds that give us maybe better PR, better optics today, but are going to result in lower overall returns for our investors in the long run. And we're very long-term oriented people. So
absolutely.
Excellent question there.
One of the big variables that we think about is taking any given fund and creating the biggest basket of assets so that, phase one is the return of capital. And then phase two is that infinite rate of return. And proportionally speaking, we will all be in that infinite rate of return indefinite hold period much longer, more like 20 or 25 years versus like the 5-year period for return of capital. And so we want to have the largest possible basket of assets in each fund so that when we're in that infinite rate of return, it's the largest amount of distributions for that entire time.
We've got several more questions, but I'd say Elaine is probably wanting us to wrap things up.
We are getting an au pair from South Africa to help us with our 5th baby who's coming in just a few weeks.
That's important.
And she is landing in 1 hour, 37 minutes flying here from Johannesburg. So I really want to be on time for her. There was one other question that we can address.
Yeah. So Justin asked, do you ever release financial statements? Yeah. If you want anything, just shoot us a message. We're happy to go through that with you. People do that all the time. We have noticed that when we put big grids of numbers up on the screen, our viewership drops in real time. So we try really hard to share as much kind of qualitative data with people as we can. We found people really like looking at income. I like looking at income too, because you can't really manipulate it. Like the rent is the rent, whereas its expenses can be like moved above the line, below the line, moved to the balance sheet. NOI is a very easily manipulated thing. So you'll see we shared about 20 charts in here that shows the rent changes over time, total rent rolls, per unit rental rates. That's a really simple, easy statistic to understand. If you're invested in an apartment building and that apartment building, its rent roll has gone up by 80% since we bought it, you're probably in good shape. Like there's like you're okay.
And now we're starting to get appraisals in hand.
Yeah.
And that's a big moment, right? Because that's it. Yeah. That's completely outside of us. Yep. That's third party. So that is exciting. Like watching these babies grow up, probably it's just because that's the phase of our personal life that we're into with having children. But we really think of all of our assets as you're bringing these little babies into our family and they just take and take and take. And you're like, I'm beating my head against the wall. It's all so hard. And then all of a sudden you see them grow up and they go off to kindergarten and the appraisal comes back and it's just such a beautiful process. And we're seeing that unfold. That's definitely like the theme of Q3 2024, as we said at the top of our time together, is it is the story of a maturing portfolio and the best is yet to come. We're nowhere near the peak for these funds.
Oh, yes.
So thank you so much for everyone who is either attending this live or listened in the replay.
There's a request to do a talk on au pairs. I think we should absolutely do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The question was, on the topic of au pairs, have you done any talks on leveraging the use of household employees for time efficiency? I do believe we have.
Creating the life you want. Rachel, if you can dig that up.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So we did something a few years ago.
Yeah. It'll be at the top of our YouTube channel right now. We should just put a link to our YouTube channel. So we have like a legit YouTube channel now. Like it's got thumbnails, we have public videos. In the past, we've just used it to like host content. And one of our coaches was like, you guys are sitting on like hundreds of really high quality videos. You should probably make those public and so the public can see them.
So we hired someone half of our age. And he's like, oh yeah, I can like do this in my sleep.
Okay, okay. I can't believe I'm doing this, but check this out. So here is our YouTube channel. Yeah. And here's our analytics. So you can see back here we were getting like 30 views a day because none of our videos were public. There was just like webinar replays. And now we have, 5,000 views, 7,000 views. So our views are 34,000 in the last 30 days, 32,500 more than usual. I feel like a fool that we had all this content sitting here for so long and didn't do anything with it. So go check out our YouTube channel. Yeah, subscribe. We got tons of amazing content out there. It's like a thing now that has just
Yeah. Historically, we would just, put up our community power hour replays or these quarterly update replays. And now we're doing all sorts of stuff with it, cutting out some of the salient stuff and putting shorts out. And
Yep.
yeah, fun stuff. Thank you, everyone. It is a joy to serve all of you. We will see you in probably January for our Q4 update. We'll have lots of content between now and then. I'm sure we'll have a pop-up webinar when we're able to release our number for our RDS appraisal. We have our visioning workshops coming up in November. Probably some of the most impactful mindset work that we do. We are big believers that the point of real estate is not just to have a big bank account, right? It's to have a big life and to do the things that are meaningful with the people that are meaningful to you and to grow yourself as a decision maker, as a planner, as a visioning expert. And so please do join us for our visioning workshops in November. Nick will be live at Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within in November. So
y'all should go.
Yeah, reach out to us if you're planning to attend and would like to see Nick in person. So lots of stuff coming up. But in terms of our quarterly updates, our next one will happen in January for Q4 of 2024. So in the event that we don't see you before then, which I think is a bad decision, I think you should come to our other content that we put out. But in the event that we don't, happy holidays. Enjoy the rest of the year. We're going to have all sorts of fun stuff to share with you for Q4. 2024 has been a really good year. So, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good rest of your day.